Using Nglf directive. The Nglf directive is a structural directive used for conditional rendering. It either adds or removes an anchor element to or from the DOM tree. It comes in two forms. The shorthand is the more popular one, but either the shorthand or the expanded form can be used as an attribute of the anchor element or an outer tag, and usually it's an ng template tag. So let's take a look at the syntax. This is the simple if statements. This will be similar to the JavaScript if statements on the right side of this table here. The shorthand notations, you can see you would use the Nglf directive as an attribute, and then you prefix it with a star. That's important. And you set that equal to a condition. It's a true or false, right, value. And then if that is true, then the div tag gets rendered. Otherwise, it's not being added to the DOM tree at all. Okay. And then the expanded version takes the ng template as the outer tag, and then you wrap the Nglf directive with a square brackets like the property binding. And then you set that to a condition. If that is true, then only the content within this template, ng template, gets rendered. So the ng template is just a placeholder. It never gets rendered to the DOM tree. And it's a special Angular template tag. So let's go and look at the if and else statement. This is where you have two branches, true and false, and we just add another additional tag here. So in the shorthand notation, the div tag looks kind of similar, except this time we added the else block, and then with the else clause. So the else block is just a keyword or a reference ID you would use to reference another element or another tag. In this case, we're using another ng template because we don't want to render that to the browser until we invoke that template. And if that is true, then it's invoked, right? And then we're going to display whatever is inside that tag, in this case, the div tag. And then the expanded version looks kind of similar, except you see the different notation there. And then there's one more special one called the if then else statement. It's the same as the previous one. You have two branches, but this time we have three tags to play with, right? So the first tag is just used as a placeholder, mainly for the if and else condition statements. And we have a then block added to the condition there. If that is the true case, then we will render the then block template. Otherwise, we'll render the else block template. So the div tag in this case does not get rendered. And then the expanded version, as you can see, is quite long, but in this case, you will end up with having three tags. Okay, so let's go into Visual Studio Code and see an example of this in Nglf. All right, so here in the IDE, just make sure you're in the app folder. We're going to work on the app component template and app component source here, the one we've been working in the previous video. And so this time, let's go to the view and make sure your app is running. I want to make sure that it's still running. So you can see it's still running. Okay, let's fix it a little bit. Just put the button on the right side. Looks get a bit odd that way. So I'm going to just basically put this into a div. I think it's the default style sheet that does that. Okay, so let's indent this. Okay, a little bit nicer now. Okay, so now let's do something like this with a different group of div tag. So here, say that I have a an H3 again, and I show some content in here. The content could be just the word, you know, a secret message. Okay, so you want to show this message when something is true. So you will put the Nglf directive right here in the front, the star Nglf. It's case sensitive, so make sure you spell this exactly the way they are. And then we're set to a condition. So it's a truly falsy value, right? So whatever it is, it needs to be evaluated to true or false. So for example, if it say 1 equals 1, yeah, that would be true, right? So you're going to see that on the browser. And that's not so fun, but you can. And it's tricky also. So I'm just showing you here because it works. If you use 1 equals 3, you have a complete different issue. So here, if I go to the browser, and you'll see that the secret message is shown because that condition is true. And if you go and then set to equals 2 like that, it's not equal. And if you try to do that and you see that have an error, it says condition is always return false because types 1 and type 2 have no overlap. This is a tricky one, so very tricky, especially when you use numbers like this, because TypeScript, right? So TypeScript would think that This is a type and this is a different type. And so if you want to make them as numbers, you have to put the plus in front of these numbers in order to compare them. Okay, so that's just how it is. And then now if I compare 1 and 2, then I'm comparing the value between 1 and 2. In that case, it's false. So therefore you see that it's not rendered to the DOM tree. And you can press the F12 key to inspect and to see the element here as well. You will see that inside the tag, right below here, as you can see, there is no tag at all. It's not visible. This is the binding, right? It's false here, but there's no div tag, so it's not added to the DOM tree at all. It's not hidden. It's not visible like that. It's never there. Okay, that is the difference between the if and if you make it as invisible, right? So that is a condition. So let's say that if we set that to a value, okay, say a value, let's just say show. Okay, we'll have a variable called show, either a variable or a function. It doesn't matter. So let's go back to the source here, and let's put here a variable called show. And initially, we'll put that to true. Okay, so in this case, it should be visible. And then let's put a function here. Let's see, a function called basically just showing how to toggle. This is a toggle. Okay, and we're gonna do something like this. So this show is equal to not this show, right? We'll just toggle between the two there, just true and false. And let's add a button here, right above here, and we'll just put here show hide. Okay, and we'll put here a click event that binds to the toggle. Let's just invoke that. Okay, so when you invoke it, this will be true or false, and you see the message will be, you know, toggle hidden and disappear and so on. So here we go. If I go and click show and hide, so there it is, right? And again, if you look at the F12, I should have left it open, but you see that the div tag is here. Here it is, the H3. If I turn it off, you see that it's completely gone from the tree. Okay, it's never there. It's not hidden. It's removed completely. Okay, so that is one of the scenarios for using the if condition. So very handy. Another one is you can also use to you know, perform some other operations, but it's the same idea, right? So let's say that I'm going to show two messages down here. Let's say we put here in ng template. This will be invisible. Let's put the secret message down here. Let's say other. No, let's see what should I put here. Well, let's do it this way. Let me just do something like this, and let me duplicate this using the Alt Shift. And so this is like the public message, and then the secret message, right? And you can just knot this, right? Make that the reverse. So in this case, only one or the other will be shown based on the condition. So in this case, I'm doing something kind of like if and else, but it's not a true if and else, but it will mimic that scenario. So if I go back in the browser and click on it, you see that I have secret message and then public message and so on. So I'm alternating that. Okay, so that's one way to do that. And then you can also use the ng if and else. Okay, so let's just say if this is true, then we'll show the secret message. Otherwise, so here we put else show public. And then I'll put a variable called show public. And then it's an ID. We'll tag that here, but you don't want to put it here because, again, if you do like this, and the reason why you use the ng template is as follows, because if I do this, actually you don't put that here anymore. You can't use the ng if, just the ID here. It means if it's true, then show this one here, else show this part, show the ID or the element that has this ID called show public, and this one has it right here. Okay, so if you leave it like that, it's not going to work because you see that it will show the public anyway because it's a H3. right? And that is why you want to put that inside an ng template, because the ng template will not render this. So if you want to use the same h3, then you will wrap that with the ng template here. And then you put that show public here. And let's move that to the bottom. So I'm wrap that with the h3 and I move that here. Okay, so now it will only render h3 because only when the else part is invoked. So if I save this and go back to the browser, and you can see it's not shown. If I go to F12, and you also see that it would not be there, okay? So only see that true part, which is the secret message. If I click hi, show, and then now you see that the public message has been rendered, okay? So it works just like the previous one, but this time I'm using the if and else condition. Okay, so that's how this thing works. If you want to use the then clause, then you would use something like this. So instead of putting that here, you would put this inside another ng template. And then, because this is not going to be shown, right? So this will be shown to the public. Let me just remove this. This will be ng template, just a placeholder. And I'll use it in the is if and else then part. So let's copy this, put it here. And this will be the show private or show secret, well, private and show public. This will be the private message and the public message down here. Okay, let me just kind of move that a little bit. And then here we have the then part. Then show private. You can put a semicolon here if you want to. If you don't, that's fine too. Okay. So if this is true, then go ahead and render the private tag. Else render the public tag. Okay. So this one here is not being rendered because now we're using the if and then part. This will be ignored. And so if you run it, you should still have the same effect as before. As you can see, if I click on it, this is the show and hide. So just like that, and that's how you would use the if and else to render a template to the view based on a condition. In the next video, we'll explore another very important and useful directive called Nglf.